Hello and welcome to episode number 41 of Future Chat. We are turning down for what here today on Future Chat? I am joined, as usual, by my co-host, Mike Attrell. How you doing, Mike?
Great. This
Glad to hear it.
lazy Sunday afternoon.
Indeed it is. Also here, unsure of his future in life, I have Nick Maddox. Nick, how are you?
I'm turned up. In fact, I believe it begs the question that, for what would I turn down?
That's true. And now, so viewers of the show who have been watching for more than the last few weeks will know the answer to why Nick is unsure of himself. And we have a question to pose for Nick today.
I'm not sure why.
So I just want to check in with you.
Okay.
And you've been a senior contributor on this show for about the last 2 months, 3 months.
And
3 weeks
am I not still a senior contributor?
Well, I'm asking you live on air if you want a promotion to co-host.
No.
Or is that too much pressure?
You know my reasoning. Do you want to go live on air with the reasoning?
Yes.
Because I think it's poor optics for 3 co-hosts to be sitting around with no special guests. And I felt my role had advanced past special guest to contributor, and frankly, I'm the senior contributor. But, yeah. Also, I mean, I want to be I want to be able to go off on these tangents and things like that. I want to be reined in. I don't want to have to, be worrying about other people.
Interesting. So you want to be a loose cannon, basically, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Should I change my lower third to reflect that?
No, I think that's fine. We are sponsored this week by TechSavvy. The internet for all 3 of us is working today.
I don't know if we're sponsored by TechSavvy, but we are literally brought to you by TechSavvy this week. It's very exciting, especially after the debacle last week.
Yeah, how was your Saturday last week?
1/3 brought to us by TELUS, but
I was so angry.
But now you're here.
Apparently, I really enjoy these because I was pretty cheesed to not be on.
And you couldn't even watch, if I understand correctly. Your downstream speed was just bad enough you couldn't even maintain video.
It was my upload speed was better than my down. I was getting less than 1 megabit per second down.
Terrible.
that's a shame because we had a very good show last week.
We did.
I listened to it. It was okay.
It was missing a certain something.
It was.
The quality? Everything went wrong.
So, yes, fans of the show, last week we tried an experiment, and this week we're going to continue that experiment, and moving away from doing one topic for the show for the entire time and then kind of starting anew every week. It was a little bit tiresome for us. It took a lot of research, and we ended up trying to cover way too much every episode.
Maybe if you'd relied more on your senior contributor.
We tried. We really, really tried. It wasn't enough. But so what we're doing?
Sorry, I got a little tease.
Go ahead.
That I'm gonna just lay down there. Maybe if I want something with more hosting, responsibilities, I would find another outlet for that.
Maybe you will.
Yeah.
Only time will tell.
It's true. Who knows?
So on this show now, we're going to try again part 2 of the experiment, see how it goes, where we're just going to talk about some of the most interesting things that we have experienced and gone through this week in science and technology. You guys on board with that?
Sure am.
Well, I mean, the notes for this week would suggest that we are on board.
That's fair. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right into it. We're going to start with a story that I just found interesting and wanted to get you guys sort of technical. Yeah?
Hold up. I did have some follow-up because I did listen to last week's episode. Did you read my notes section, Rob?
That's a better place to start. I did read your notes, yeah.
Oh, okay. Because, that right now just suggests that you hadn't. So.
Go for it.
I feel like a responsible host, would have gone through the notes several times and actually known what was there. But it's not my place to criticize, I suppose.
I mean, go ahead. You're already breaking the show.
No, but you guys talked about surface texture for solar cells and the implications that could have. That's actually it's not like a brand new idea. It's been around for at least a few years. I remember reading not a terribly long time ago about using hydrofluoric acid, just like dilute solutions to roughen the surface of solar cells. Specifically silicon solar cells, which is great because silicon is so much more plentiful than all the other materials they're thinking about using. And what you end up getting is a square pyramid structure that just layers across the entirety of the solar cell. So I mean, if you follow actual rays of light hitting the surface, on a normal solar cell that would just, come in and bounce off, but with a roughened surface like that, you increase the chances that you're getting multiple bounces within one single ray of light, and that factor increase of absorption and thus energy production. But yeah, so surface roughening is a great idea. I think there's a lot of potential for that idea within solar cells.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No one's laughing at the potential joke there. That's cool.
That's a very, very highbrow joke.
Can you confirm the efficiency percentage number we were trying to clarify there?
Oh.
In all the articles, it was fairly ambiguous as far as what the actual efficiency level was in your offhand.
Oh,
Senior contributor knowledge.
Yeah, as a senior contributor, maybe you should have this information in front of you.
Especially since you brought it up,
Yeah.
Maybe I worked alongside people doing solar research. Guys, did that occur to you?
Yep, it did.
Well,
Go ahead.
Would you agree that 40% efficiency sounds very high?
That's extremely high.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that's I'm sure maybe one day you could reach that, but part of the problem as it stands is there's only a certain percentage of photons that a solar cell can actually use, and so that's you end up with theoretical limits where you can't use the entirety of the spectrum unless you're talking about using it for heat energy, and usually you're not.
Right.
But I want to say this may be way off, and loyal viewers, please let me know. I want to say just off the top of my head, it's between 10 and 20% efficiency right now, for good cells.
And so the Blu-ray was they said a 20% increase on that efficiency, and so it's about 24%.
I don't think they're talking percentage points. I think they're talking. Yeah. So it's increased by a fifth of what it was.
Yeah. Okay, so we're all in agreement then.
We are.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I like it when we agree about things.
Do you want to again continue, Nick?
I was going to say disagreement leads to some very interesting listening.
Yes, it does. Feel free to disagree on some other follow-up of yours.
Oh, let me double check. Hydrogen and graphene, capturing hydrogen gas with graphene.
Yeah.
That was talked about.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting proposal. I'm not sure how they seek to ionize hydrogen with graphene, but if they can do it.
I don't think they were seeking to ionize it. They were using graphene as a physical barrier that only allowed hydrogen through.
Oh, okay. Can hydrogen fit through if it's not tunneling?
That's what I was talking about. I was saying the only thing I could think of is if it was tunneling, because it's kind of like shoving a beer bottle through chicken wire. It wouldn't.
Well, yeah. I mean, do you remember? Did you take second year biochem?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember Mezel, Dr. Mezel?
Mm-hmm.
And for anyone who's had Dr. Mezel, you will recognize the phrase, "So guys, the guy at the bus stop is asking you, what's the biggest element from the first column of the periodic table that can fit through graphite? What is it, guys?" Because, of course, the guy at the bus stop would ask you such a question.
Of course he would.
But, I mean, if you're considering the orbitals, like, there's no room to get through graphene unless it's tunneling, which I think it stands a reasonable chance of tunneling, just having not performed any of those calculations for years now. But
So for those layman chemistry enthusiasts in the crowd, can you explain what tunneling is?
In this context, we would be talking about a molecule of hydrogen gas approaching a sheet of graphene and then just being on the other side all of a sudden.
In a quantum probability sense?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, no, they say that quantum tunneling is akin to, in the classical physics world, it's akin to like walking towards a door, a closed door, and just going through it. Like it's so unlikely, but on a quantum level it happens all the time.
If we're talking about, like, in the strict physical sense, it means you've just penetrated through an energy barrier somehow without actually expending that energy. So in this case, we're saying it would take a certain amount of energy to cram a hydrogen molecule through a sheet of graphene, and it's probably not going to do that according to classical mechanics, but just because it's the quantum world at that scale, it's just all of a sudden it's on the other side for some reason.
Yeah, but it was pretty cool because they were saying that the original calculations show that it wouldn't happen at all, even tunneling. And then the later calculations, which is the ones they were talking about, were saying that it can happen, and then they were starting tests showing that it could.
That's cool.
Yeah.
No, I thought you were talking about using it for like fuel cell technology, and I was like,
it's similar to fuel cells, but not exactly.
But I mean, the other problem if you're talking about using hydrogen as a fuel for fuel cells is you're usually talking about compressed hydrogen, and this is off the top of my head, but a figure I've heard a lot because I worked in the field for 8 months. Was that if you're talking about using compressed hydrogen, you've actually taken a third of all the chemical potential energy in that tank of hydrogen to cram it into that tank.
Yeah.
So you've just imposed what do you call that? Not life cycle, but something to tailpipe. I don't know. You've just dropped the energy return on energy invested by a third over the theoretical total that you could have.
Right. And I think they were saying that you don't even have to necessarily use gaseous hydrogen. They were saying you could use any compound that contained hydrogen because this graphene barrier was impenetrable. So if hydrogen could get across, but it couldn't get back, there was no chemical incentive for it to go back at all. And so they were saying you didn't necessarily need pressurized hydrogen, you just needed a fuel source that contained hydrogen.
I would be curious to read more on this topic.
As would I. And I think there's a topic in here where we're going to talk about open source science. So we'll get to that because there was behind a paywall, and none of us are necessarily going to pay for that as affiliates, not necessarily working in the scientific field. But we'll talk a bit about that later.
Absolutely.
Was there any other follow-up that you had from last episode?
Yeah. So we were talking, or Mike, I believe specifically was talking about beer through coffee, or coffee through beer.
Beer through coffee.
Beer through coffee.
Yeah.
I imagine you could operate that based on the principles of like my espresso machine, where you tamp down grounds at a high pressure and then force through high pressure water.
Yeah, that's the analogy they used for that system, was similar to an espresso maker.
It would be interesting, that's for sure. not sure what it would taste like because, I mean, I've had some coffee porters before and they're all right, but
Yeah. Well,
I don't
and
know.
the concept extended more to, like, they were talking more about hops, and we talked about
Yeah,
dry
yeah.
hopping, and that the process was similar to that, but instead of just steeping the hops, you're just forcing it through them prior to, like, on its way into the glass, kind of.
Which is weird,
Yeah.
just in itself.
Did we lose Nick?
I hope we didn't lose Nick, but it looks like he's gone for the time being. Let's assume for the time being that he doesn't have anything
Oh,
else to say on the matter.
oh,
Oh,
oh.
how are things, Nick?
They're fine.
That was a close one.
They're okay. God. Ah.
We'll figure this out yet.
Yeah. Sure will.
Do you want to continue?
So dry hopping, in the sense of brewing, is where just at the end of your boil, so you usually boil everything for about an hour. It's just at the end of it, you just take a handful of hops and throw them in and slam on the lid and just leave it there for a bit. And so you haven't actually cooked the hops in. You've just thrown it in. And when you dry hop, I believe the dry hopping is for the aroma. So when you add hops earlier in the boil, it's for the bitterness and the flavor. But when you add it later, it's more for the aroma. And I'm pretty sure that when you're beer tasting and you burp, that's how you determine what the, true hop aroma is like. Because burping is an integral part of beer tasting, and I think that's great.
So if you were to go and try some beers, would you be interested in trying hop-infused beer using that method of the espresso concept of forcing the beer through the hops on its way into your glass? Do you see that as a value-added process?
I like to support those who are willing to try something new. If I don't like it, then I won't do it again, or try everything twice because the first time might have been a one-off. But I'd try it twice. But if I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. But I think it's interesting. It's always worth trying new things.
It multiplies the menu a little bit. Like, if you have a beer and it's like, oh, try the same beer but with whatever kind of hop or whatever kind of aroma added to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can just stick to the Bavarian purity laws and just never try anything new, but
it worked for them.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of funny because we went on a tour of the Big Rock Brewery, Mike and I did. And they were saying, the 1516 Bavarian purity laws really influence a lot of what we do here. And if the beer doesn't comply with the 1516 laws, then, it'll basically tell you in the name why it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go and look at their taps afterwards, and it's like, so the vast majority of them then don't comply. Because it's the specialty taps that they have out in their tasting room, but it's like Scottish Heavy doesn't comply, Blueberry doesn't comply, this doesn't comply, and there are a couple on the end that are just beer.
Right, but they're trying things, and they stick to the recipe so long as you need to, and then break away once it doesn't work anymore, once it doesn't fit your needs.
Well, yeah, but the whole point of purity laws are that you never deviate from them.
I know, but maybe that's a little bit ridiculous and too much.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really like Big Rock, especially the Scottish Heavy. It's one of my favorite beers ever, and that doesn't comply with the purity laws, but I just think it's funny.
Yeah.
And I included a link under my Beer Through Coffee thing, and since this is a future chat, Second Cup Corporation recently unveiled the Cafe of the Future.
Ooh.
Yeah, I encourage you to call up that link. Basically, they've put an emphasis on the slow cafe, and they've opened their flagship in the theater district of Toronto. So they've got a big semicircular bar with a barista behind it. They've got a bunch of different ways that you can have your coffee brewed, some of them being very large machines. And one thing that I thought was really interesting, and I think will interest you guys, is they are including electronic outlets at the bar so that you can charge your devices while you're having a coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And further, they also...
Why are you shaking your head?
Yeah, because we listened to Rob's Ask Rob on coffee. However, if it's still a second cup, they will have Italian soda. How do you feel about that?
I've tried Italian soda. It's fine. I was actually shaking my head at the need for outlets because I always carry around my extra power brick.
Okay. The other thing, not just outlets, but they have the induction chargers. So they have
3 phones that use that.
It's the Cafe of the Future, Rob. The future. Can't you get excited about the future,
Rob?
Rob?
Eventually, iOS will catch up to Android and get on board with the inductive charging.
Have you ever wirelessly charged your phone?
Eventually, we can only hope.
Have you wirelessly charged your phone?
No, because I don't have a need to.
Oh, well, me either.
It's able to.
Yeah.
What I'm really curious about, you know those stoves that do inductive heating?
Yeah.
Induction cooking.
I wonder if you could just, like...
Put your phone on it?
I guess that would work.
Oh, no. I don't think it would.
This week in Brilliant Ideas.
It might cook your phone, but I don't know that it would
No,
charge
why
it.
would it cook your phone?
I don't
Well,
know. I
because-
just have a feeling it would cook your phone.
Well, no, the stoves that cook by induction, they just, you know,
They
they
heat the
shoot a
pan.
magnetic field through a pot,
Yeah.
but it induces a current in the pot.
Yeah.
With, this is probably why it would cook your phone. It
It would cook your
induces
phone.
enough of a current that the resistance in the metal heats up, and it boils water really quickly, which is great. But
See, if
I
your
wonder if
phone's-
you like. So here's the stove, like down here, and here's your phone, like way up here. I wonder if that could.
Like, that's like 4chan telling people to microwave your phones to charge them. It's not...
At least this
I get what
kind
you're
of
trying
makes
to do, but
sense. It could, in theory, work.
I mean, sure, but not with the traditional, conventional microwave. It's not...
Well, they have specific protocols that the charger needs to meet to be compatible
Yes.
to charge your phone like that, right?
Yep.
Yep.
There are already competing standards on that.
Because of course there are. But yeah, I don't know. I thought that was really cool. Like the idea that you can just sit down, get your coffee, and set your phone down, and all of a sudden you're charging. That sounds like a fantastic cafe of the future. Rob, you can have hot chocolate.
Yeah. In the future, hopefully, this will be built into most furniture where you'd need to sit, or it would be built into the restaurant itself, and it would be sort of like Wi-Fi. They've been talking about medium-range induction charging of electronics for a while now, like doing it like 6 feet or so. It's not very efficient. It would be like a trickle charge. No, but honestly, they've been looking at it and it being just as efficient as current induction charging where it's sitting on top of it.
I believe Nikola Tesla himself looked into the same idea.
And we know how that worked out. It was really great.
It was.
I know. He was a genius.
Yeah.
A little eccentric, but...
Aren't we all?
That's true. Any other follow-up?
I love you guys so much. I'm so happy to be here with only the most minor of blips so far. Even though I actually turned off all the other devices in the apartment that would be pulling bandwidth right now.
But you're in HD, so that's more than could be said for previous episodes.
It's true.
That's true. Let's focus on the positives, guys.
That's true. Is that another electronics joke?
It wasn't, but it is now.
It's just as much as your potential joke. It's just as bad.
No, that was far more an accessible joke, but
True.
yeah.
Did
Why would I make it?
Mike? What was your biggest story of the week?
My biggest story?
Your most interesting to you story. You can just pick one arbitrarily.
God.
I don't know. I don't
All the
think there's
stories.
anything. I don't think there's anything specific about it. Maybe we can talk a bit about the alternative energy. Maybe not. I don't know if you call it alternative energy, but an alternative method of getting hydrocarbons that's not sucking it out of the ground.
That one.
I don't know.
Is it
I
the
think
military
that's
one?
I think that's the most scientifically interesting one that I came across. So just for a bit of background for our viewers and for you guys, if you need a refresher, the main concept was taking seawater, which has the dissolved carbonic acid in it, and grabbing the carbon and hydrogens that are inside of it to use for hydrocarbon production and turn it into usable jet fuel. That was the main principle and idea behind it. And they were able to use that process to get enough fuel to power I want to say, model plane.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was like a big model plane.
yeah, so it was a proof of concept, and they kind of proved it out a little. But
Cool.
to scale it up, I think, is the next challenge. So yeah, I don't. You guys can comment on it and give your thoughts.
I'm curious what scale it was.
It wasn't very large scale.
No, it was like, we can do it.
Like, what I want to add there is basically, Rob, I believe, like, I have just thought of this in the last 20 seconds, but I believe you wrote a blog post on, it was a big factory that basically, like, manufactured methanol or something like that from just air.
That sounds like something maybe a while back, yeah?
Yeah, it was a while back. I think in the same post you talked about Office 365.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and it was widely heralded by me on my Facebook wall. But
This is the picture here of the plane.
Okay.
So that's the
Okay,
scale
so
we're
it's pretty
talking
small.
about. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like with Rob's criticism of the plant that makes fuel from fresh air, I have the same criticism where you could probably just use that energy more efficiently some other way, because you end up taking a lot of energetic losses in each conversion step, and so I'm just. Although, when I said this to Mike when he first showed us the link, the counterpoint was, well, then what are you going to use as fuel? Because it's difficult to fly with batteries. Batteries are heavy.
Well,
To which I say, touche, Mike, that's an excellent point. But my riposte!
Well, you need a certain amount of, like, thrust, too. And I don't know if batteries, if their energy output can... It's not about even just energy capacity. It's just the nature in which they provide the energy.
You need that is a concern, and I think you would have to use something like, because I mean the reason they use lead acid batteries is that you can have very rapid discharge.
Yep.
But not sustained, because then the battery explodes.
That's bad.
Which was a great physics lecture, by the way. Stadnick in first year, he was. And this is why I don't want to be a host. I want to be able to digress this way. Stadnick in first year he brought out a car battery and a big wrench for us, and went to just show the sparks that happen when you short the battery. And he's like, so before I do this, the problem with this demonstration is, if I don't do it quickly, the heat will weld the wrench to the battery. And if it does that, the battery will start generating hydrogen, and it will explode. So, if I run out of room, you have day off. You leave. You go be happy. Class is dismissed. Although class wasn't dismissed.
Yeah.
Fortunately and unfortunately, but...
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, so my counter to this specific scheme would be I would far rather see, and I know Rob will not be surprised at all to hear this, but I would rather see something like switchgrass used in the process.
I was gonna joke and be like, switchgrass powered jet planes, and then you
well, yeah, no, because you can actually do that. Like you can take biomass of any sort and then gasify it. But when you do that, you wind up with syngas, so carbon monoxide and hydrogen, and you can take those, because that's also what they extracted from the oceans, as I understand it. And you can take that and make it into methanol, or, well, methanol's easy, but you can also do a bunch of other processes that are energetically costly and get, different hydrocarbon fractions. But I would almost rather see biomass used for something like that. I mean, it would take a lot of energy, but I just think it's far more efficient at this stage in the game.
Yeah. The next fuel revolution will probably come when we move beyond syngas. When we first discovered syngas in the 1930s, 20s or 30s.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah. Every process has pretty much been, let's get to syngas from whatever fuel source, and then from there it's easy. And so if we can move beyond that requirement and find some other more efficient way to get to fuel, then I think we'll be better off than we are now.
Yeah.
But it's a great proof of concept to see a human-weighted plane, or slightly less than a human. I can't really tell, but dog-sized? Can we say dog-sized?
Yeah, I'll say dog-sized plane.
Yeah.
A pretty big dog, but still.
It was pretty cool though. Like it's an interesting engineering challenge anyway.
I feel that I don't know if you guys watched the show Shark Tank or Dragon's Den, the Canadian variant on it.
I've only seen a couple episodes.
Yeah. So there's one guy that came on one time, and he proposed a cyclone generator that harnessed the energy of the Coriolis effect to turn turbines that generate electricity or power.
So wind power?
I don't know. He didn't go into the whole scientific details of it, but it sounded kind of crazy.
He probably should have.
And one of the byproducts was that he harvested gold from the ocean, and then that was supposed to make money too. So this kind of smells of that a little bit, of kind of like, sure you can do it, but I don't know if it's worth, if it pays off in the long term.
Yeah.
But
that's interesting.
Try new things.
Yeah, keep trying. I'd say to that guy, go back and don't look for gold in the ocean, because it's really, really minute traces.
To quote Michael Faraday, but still try, for who knows what is possible.
It's a good quote.
It's one of my favorites.
So I wanted to talk this week about a story that I just thought was interesting from a technology perspective. There's been a lot of talk in the last few years about how we're running out of IP addresses.
Mm-hmm.
And the solution to that, because we were on IPv4, which used 32-bit IP addresses, and that got us about 2.2 billion devices connected to the internet at any given time. Without network addressing things that you can do, like workarounds, basically you could get a maximum of 2-point-something billion. And so you started to get into numbers of things around the number of people on Earth. And the solution to this problem was that we went to IPv6, which used 64-bit addresses, and gave us something like 6 sextillion addresses. Like, it was way more than we would ever need. You could have each person on Earth could have 2 billion devices, and you'd still be fine. Like there's so many addresses. And so this week, YouTube encountered a similar problem where we finally had a YouTube video that used up an entire signed 32-bit number of views, which is about 2.1, 2.2 billion. And obviously, the software engineers at YouTube knew this was coming. They knew they were using a signed floating point 32-bit number to represent views, and so they adapted this very quickly. And there's actually if you go to, it was Gangnam Style was the video that broke this number for the first time, and it's ahead by a long shot. And so now if you go to the Gangnam Style video on YouTube and you hover your mouse over the view counter, it'll actually wrap around past 2.1 billion and show you the number. It'll wrap to negative 2.1 billion because it's a signed number. I don't know if you guys know much about how integers work in computers, but
no,
it's really interesting. It lets you a 32-bit number represented by ones and zeros. The largest decimal number you can represent is about 4.2 billion, like twice this 2 billion number. But when you're using a signed bit, the first bit is a negative or a positive, and so you can use it to represent any number from negative 2.1 billion up to positive 2.1 billion. And so if you're using a 32-bit number to represent a number that's bigger than 2.1 billion, it will wrap from positive 2.1 underneath all the way up to negative 2.1. And so if you hover over the mouse, it'll wrap the number instead of converting it to a higher number, which is just like it's a cute Easter egg that the Google engineers cooked up as they saw this problem coming. But long story short, as with IP addresses, YouTube views are now using a 64-bit number or a 64-bit container. So we again have a video could be watched 6 sextillion times before we encounter this problem again. I just thought it's really
we
cool.
will.
Yeah. At some point, Gangnam Style, I think Charlie Bit My Finger was also up there in the top 10 views all time. One of those videos will eventually be viewed multiple billions of times by each human living on Earth, and so we'll have to use a 128-bit integer for video views.
And I'm so happy that Gangnam Style got that honor, we'll call it.
Yeah.
Because there are so many more videos that are very high up in the views and quite undeserving. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, Gangnam Style was artistic in so many ways.
It really was.
It actually is a damning review of the lifestyle of the people of Gangnam.
Yeah.
It's funny because anyone who's into K-pop is wondering why that specific video got the attention it did, because they're like, all the videos are like this. Like any sort of K-pop type thing, it's like it's kind of weird and catchy and whatever, but
Kitschy, I think, is the word you're looking for. Campy.
But I guess this one just happened to get the attention and cause motivated change in YouTube's number logging process.
Yeah. But it reminds me of the Randall Munroe talked about, I think in one of his XKCD cartoons. Rob might remember this, if Mike doesn't. They were talking about, Y2K was going to be such a huge problem. But they were saying, like, 2048 is going to be a terrible, horrible time.
Yeah.
Because that's when all the 32-bit operating systems are going to hit their end of years.
Yeah.
And the computers that we're using, whatever is vulnerable to the year 2000, are so many, or there's such a small fraction of the 32-bit computers that are going to run out of dates in 2048.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll have moved on by then.
Let's hope everyone's using 64-bit operating systems by that point.
I will try to find that comic so we can put a link to it, but I can't promise anything because I remember it, but I have no idea where I would find it by searching.
All right, I'm on it. Keep talking.
Mike, do you have another story you want to share with us?
I have lots of stories.
I know.
Let's talk about scientific papers for a little bit, because
Yeah.
I think at this point there's at least two that are of interest, and they're semi-related, kind of. So the first one,
Jump in. I got it.
okay, it'll be in the notes.
Yeah.
So the first one is that, what is it, Nature, that has allowed for links to papers who are from paid subscribers to share the link, and the access becomes free as long as that specific link is used. So I don't know the exact method they're going to do it, if it's going to be like a link generation type thing where it's a unique one that is assigned to whoever user so they can track it or trace where the link came from or that kind of thing. But the whole point is that you may see the end of paywalls when it comes to journal art entries from Nature that are being shared in media, which would be great.
So the problem I see there, like I'm assuming this is read-only access. You're not going to be able to download these or anything like that.
I possibly. I remember there's a part in the article that I read that mentioned that before you could download PDFs and email them, but yeah, now you can share a read-only link, I believe.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, it's technically better, I guess, but people are probably still going to share PDFs because that's even easier.
Yeah.
If you're writing an article for like the Wall Street Journal, you can't just put like a torrent to a PDF. Like you could, but chances are it's just easier to share the link to the abstract.
Yeah. Now, was your reference to the New York Times
I said Wall Street
purposeful?
Journal.
Wall Street Journal, sorry, you're right. Was that intentional? Because the Wall Street Journal also has a paywall.
No, I know. The reason I thought of that because I just recently tried reading a Wall Street Journal link, and it said you had to subscribe to finish reading the article.
So, have you read about the workaround? I'm going to share it now
No.
for those of you that haven't. If you take the title of that article and put it into Google, Googling a Wall Street Journal article will let you read the whole thing.
Oh.
Even when you click on a link, it won't. But if you go to Google, search for the title of the article, it'll pop right up in the results. You click that Google link, and it will give you the full version without subscribing.
Or you can just use an incognito window, can't you?
No.
Oh, no, this is something different, sorry.
Yeah. It's very interesting, though, and I use that all the time.
The Journal of the Electrochemical Society is also moving towards free and open access. I think they made it such that you can pay like a $300 fee and this is for the next few years. You'll be able to pay a fee and then make your article open source.
Okay.
But in the next, like they're looking to, within the next few years, become just completely open source.
Right.
Which will be tremendous for electrochemical research everywhere. Because, I mean, chemistry has some of the worst, what is it? It's the fee structure. Like, it's the most expensive thing to subscribe to, is chemistry articles.
So by trying to avoid paywalls, are we doing a disservice to the hardworking scientists in our industry trying to make a living?
No.
And get their articles published so publishers will be less...
No, because...
They don't make money from it. It's the
No, I know
publishers
maybe
that
not the
make money
scientists,
from
but
it.
the publishers are the ones that publish the article. So if they're not making money, then why would they do...
Well, they're doing a crappy job anyway.
Yeah.
Like, have you seen
Really
some of the
crappy
crap
job.
that gets published? And I do mean crap, like things that people make up, or like.
Is this a purposeful segue? Because that would be my next.
No,
article.
like actual crap. Like
yeah.
You have headings where it's like elemental analysis. Hey Cheryl, I can't get to this. You do it. Just make something up. Like that actual phrase got into a published article.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, if they were doing a great job of it, maybe they would deserve some of that, tons and tons of money that they're harvesting from people.
Yeah.
But you know what? No, they're doing a crappy job.
Yeah, that's come to light a lot more recently too. At least it seems like it has been. Because I guess
With the
apparently
internet, people can search a lot easier.
yeah, and apparently it's a thing now for websites to pose as peer-reviewed journals and accept papers and charge fees for them
Yeah.
to the scientists and also to the people accessing them, and they're not peer-reviewed or actual journals at all.
Well, they're I think they're called predatory journals.
Mhm.
They basically will take your money to publish your article, but there's no review process. They're just trying to take your money.
Yeah, and there's been a couple journalists / scientists recently that have exploited those efforts and submit a completely bogus journal or a completely bogus paper, and it's been accepted, and they're like, okay, give us your $500, but it's like that wasn't even a real paper, so obviously no one actually read it or did any sort of review of it. And that's aside from what you were saying, Nick, because I've read things too where you'll have in the side notes insert that crappy paper by whoever here, and that was an actual thing. Oh, that crappy paper by, and then they named whatever scientist, and then that actually got into the published paper.
Yeah.
That comment.
Yeah.
So it's that's its own thing. But then there's other issues where it comes to just bogus journals. Period.
Well, I mean, I've talked to some people in the fields who I don't think I'll name right now, but they were saying it used to be, you would get actually called out in the literature if you did a crappy job of a paper, but they don't really do that as much anymore. But I mean, it's not exactly a new problem. If you're familiar with the Sokal affair, or Sokal, anyway, it's what did he do? He published an article called Transgressing the Boundaries Towards a Transformative Hermeneutics of Quantum Gravity. And he published that in a journal called Social Text or something like that. And they didn't practice peer review. And so he just took a bunch of quotations from people who didn't know what they were talking about. And then took it out of context and just pieced a bunch of that together and said, wow, guys, quantum gravity, look at all the fancy stuff, guys. And they were like, yeah, this is great, let's publish it. And then, simultaneously, he sent an article to another journal. It's look, I just submitted complete and utter crap to this other journal, and they're going to publish it. Just you watch. So publish this at the same time. And that happened.
Pretty brilliant, actually.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. There was an article here specifically that you wanted to mention, Mike.
Was there?
One about the Simpsons, or?
Oh yeah, that was just one I came across today, and it reminded me. But, yeah, I don't know. It was one that it was a paper that was submitted by someone, again trying to exploit these predatory journals, and he generated a paper through a science text generator, literally automated garbage, and then the authors he listed as Margaret Simpson, Edna Krabappel, and some other person. It's Kim Jong Fun or something like that. And they're like, yep, great, yeah, I accepted. Give us your money. And I can't remember if it got published, but it got accepted.
Right.
As a paper to the journal, and it was the authors were kind of its own giveaway, and then the text itself was generated from a science text generator. So it wasn't even an actual.
Now, is this at all related to the guy who made a scientific paper out of the words "Take me off your effing mailing list"?
Yeah,
yeah.
that was the other one. That was the first one I read about this, and yeah,
okay.
that was another good one.
That was spectacular. I didn't read it so much as scrolled through it and looked at the stuff he'd done, but he'd made like some good graphs.
Yeah, so you made graphs with it.
It was very well done.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, that was clever. There's another piece here that we should talk about to do with Google, and so it's the fact that they have, and I don't know if either of you have used this yet or come across it, but they have a new CAPTCHA system called reCAPTCHA, or it's called reCAPTCHA uncapture, I think.
Because reCAPTCHA is already a thing.
Yeah. And have you guys seen it in practice? I had it a couple times already.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
Yeah. So basically, it uses better technology than just filling out, like taking your original CAPTCHA picture and trying to parse the text that's got lines through it and is all squiggly and hard to read to prove that you're a human. And it takes sort of modern scientific computer science things that only humans would do. So, for instance, the one that I had, it was just a checkbox, like a big checkbox, and it said, "I am a human." And at first, I went and I tried to click on it, and it didn't do anything. And then I wiggled my mouse around on the checkbox a bit, and then the check mark just highlighted. So it took me moving the mouse around on the box, because a robot's not going to do that. It's very interesting, and they were saying that sometimes it will just automatically be like, oh, yep, we have searched through whatever data we needed to, and it's very obvious you're a human. And then in some cases, it's going to be your behavior will be more robot-like, and so they'll have other verifications where they'll show you a bunch of pictures, and you have to tell which ones are cats or which ones are whatever object.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And so they basically what brought this up was that Google themselves were able to design a bot that could beat 98% of CAPTCHAs, and so it was like, all right, this is useless now because robots can do it just as well as humans can, and because obviously many of us have failed doing the CAPTCHAs. Some of them are literally unreadable.
Yeah.
But
yes, I was gonna say recently anyway, some of them have gotten pretty bad.
Yeah.
Like it's like type this in. It's like it's a 4. Is that a Q or a 7?
The ones that have like a J or an I, and it'll have like the little dot, but you can't see which one it is. And it's like, or an O and an A. Sometimes they look similar, and it's like.
I'm pretty excited about the future of this because my experience with it was, it's actually, CAPTCHAs maybe used to be kind of fun when they were new, but now they're just horrible, and so this is a lot better process.
Yeah.
Proving you're human has never been any more fun. Which is a great segue into the next segment I wanted to talk about, which is movies. There's two things. So movies, there's a bunch of science and interesting technology movies that have come out recently, and there's also a couple of trailers that have come out for movies that are coming out next year that also look interesting that maybe we could talk about. And so I take it that none of us have you guys been to any movies recently? Because I'm thinking this should be phrased more as, if you haven't seen these movies, they're really good and you should go see them, and we're also going to go see them over the holidays or over the next few weeks anyways.
Yeah. I haven't seen any of the movies we're specifically talking about yet.
Yeah, neither have I, but I'm really excited to see them all.
I saw Gone Girl, which was stellar.
Was it about science or technology?
I'm
honestly curious because I didn't think they were, but maybe they are.
There is an element of psychology in it, I suppose.
It's a psychological thriller.
Yeah. I saw Divergent. That one actually wasn't too bad. It was kind of cool.
It was okay, yeah. It was. My problem with Divergent was it was, like, I knew it was a young adult book series.
Yeah.
And it was like, the whole premise of the movie is, oh look, this person is a special snowflake. Can't imagine who that's pandering to.
Have you guys seen the SNL sketch where they make fun of all of the young adult novels where everyone is their own special snowflake. Oh, it's really good. A few weeks ago now, but they took aspects of things like The Hunger Games, The Giver,
Right.
Divergent series,
Oh yeah, the Giver
all of
was good
these
too.
things that have just come out, and yeah, they had all the young, because they got a bunch of new players that are in their early 20s, and they like just such a good job completely tearing those movies apart. It was quite good.
It's good.
I'll try to
Can
find a
you,
link to it, but NBC is pretty litigious when it comes to video.
awesome.
But so yeah, let's start with movies that we should all go see and obviously haven't seen yet. I want to start by saying this is a pre-spoiler for Interstellar, because none of us have seen it, so we can't spoil it.
Yep.
I don't know. I love Christopher Nolan movies, and so I think like this is going to be the only podcast where people will talk about Interstellar who haven't seen it yet.
That's true.
But after it's come out, all I've heard is that there are lots of like it's a very, very good movie, and there's moments that are very easy to spoil. Like that, there are a lot of spoiler-worthy moments. I have had pretty much the whole movie spoiled for me by myself, as I've written about before. That I don't really care about spoilers. What do you guys think? Like, is it like on the must-see list? Is it maybe I'll have time to get to it?
Honestly, I see maybe 2 movies a year, so chances are if it ends up on Netflix, I might catch it. not that I don't want to see it, just that I probably won't get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I might watch it later. Although, the only major motivation I've had for seeing Interstellar was Stuff You Should Know did a podcast on terraforming
Oh
not
yeah,
long
they did.
ago.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how that related to Interstellar, and I was like, oh, well, I think the idea of terraforming is just endlessly fascinating, so maybe I will go see this movie that is somehow related. I'm not actually sure because I haven't seen it.
So, what is the movie about, though? Because I've heard really good things about it, too. Is it just is it like a space thriller?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a very easy way to not spoil a movie in describing it because I haven't seen it. But so basically, there are scientists that are sent to different regions of, I don't know how far they go, but they go through wormholes to other places with the hope that they'll be able to colonize those places. And so they have some good candidates, and they're sending teams out. And in some cases, I think they've already sent teams before, but they didn't hear back, and so there's stuff to do with time change and how we wouldn't expect to hear back because it will have been so long by the time they're able to get back that, yeah. So there's a lot of there's a book that came out from one of the theoretical physicists that was involved as a producer on the movie, Kip Thorne. It's just basically the whole book goes into the science of Interstellar, and it's basically done in a very realistic way with regards to the physics that we know about wormholes, about black holes, about all kinds of, like, basically all the astrophysics we know are as close as you can be to write while keeping with sort of cinematic intrigue and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really, really excited to see it, and I don't know that I'll get the chance. My friends all went on a night when I wasn't able to make it, and so I'm gonna have to go out of my way to see it or convince them to see it again. But I'm pretty excited.
I have also heard Matthew McConaughey is in it, yes?
Yes.
I've heard that he has very attractive hands, and a lot of, at least a non-trivial number of women will go to see Interstellar just so that they might see Matthew McConaughey's hands.
Oh, interesting. So he takes his gloves off often in this movie, is what you're saying, to show you his very nice hands.
Well, they were going on the hopes that they would see some of Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah. Because
he is frequently shirtless in his movies.
He is, yeah.
And also tilted in the movie posters.
His best angle is not straight up and down.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah. So the next one on the list here that I've put on, basically everything I see, or every movie that I want to see, somebody goes on The Daily Show to talk about it, one of the actors or the director or whatever. And so Benedict Cumberbatch was on The Daily Show talking about The Imitation Game, which is a movie about Alan Turing's life. Which, if for those people who aren't familiar, Alan Turing was the guy who basically developed a lot of the theories we use today about computer intelligence. And one of the reasons that we need CAPTCHAs is because of the theoretical work that he did at the beginning of computer intelligence. With the Turing test in computer science is a test where a computer has to demonstrate to a panel of judges that they can act to an outsider, to a third party, as though they are human. Like they can convince another human that they are also human and not a robot.
Is the Turing test more of a conceptual, like, thought experiment these days, I think? I don't think people give it as much credibility.
No, they actually
not a
perform
literal
Turing
test.
tests.
What's that?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
They have actually performed Turing tests. Like
Yeah.
No, right.
they actually do them.
Right. But I
And they see
think
if you can beat chance in predicting whether or not this machine is a human or not.
Yeah. But a lot of it, I think, what I've read recently anyways, it plays into a lot of people's biases or expectations. Like, say someone who's, like, if it's not, like a second language or a certain maturity level, then you don't interpret it the same way as, like, even though it's a human behind it, you'll be like, oh, this guy's a robot, but it's just
Right, but isn't
other
that
aspects.
kind of enough? Like, what more do you want?
What do you mean? No, but the Turing test didn't
French human
work.
speak English and get confused. Like one of the examples of a robot that beat the Turing test at least once was because the human counterpart, they asked a question about Sarah Palin, and the human had never heard of Sarah Palin, and so when the robot was able to go along in conversation, whereas the human said, "Who's Sarah Palin?" They were like, "Oh, well, that's obviously the robot." So they mixed them up. But we're at the point now that it's like pop culture references are the distinguishing factor.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a fair, like, determining factor when you're trying to figure out who's a robot when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Right, but it's a human judging. That's
a subjective judgment.
Test.
Right.
But it's a panel, though.
Yeah, that's the
But
test.
the panel's still subjective and a certain number of people.
Yeah, but all human-based tests, like, how do you get a machine to test whether a machine sounds like a human?
That is the Turing test. There's no better designator of what's artificial intelligence and what isn't yet.
Yeah.
Although, the other thing I was going to ask is, does it go into his work during World War II at all?
Yeah, that's what it's mostly about.
Oh, okay. Because, I mean, like, yeah, he was behind the Turing test, but he also cracked the Enigma machine.
Yeah.
And was sterilized for being a homosexual.
Yeah, there's a
more you
lot
know.
of issues it goes into. Yeah, it's his life. It's not all about the artificial intelligence, but it's a really crazy story, but it looks again like a very, very good movie.
Well, and the theory of everything's a similar concept, I think, as far as looking at the life of Stephen Hawking versus just his theories.
Yeah. It's so that I believe the theory of everything is sort of his whole life as his, like, it starts off with him young and pretty much fully healthy, not like the Stephen Hawking that we grew up thinking about. And it's very interesting to see someone go through that. And again, like, that's another movie that I haven't seen, but I really want to see it. And as soon as it comes out, I'm probably not going to see it in theaters, but as soon as it comes out, I'm going to get right on that.
Our now ex-roommates went to see it, and they said it was very good. Although, actually, I remember the first time I saw a picture of Hawking, like, before he was in the chair, and just being surprised, because I had never considered that there was a time when he wasn't wheelchair-bound. Interesting.
Very interesting.
Great man.
Yeah.
Supposedly good movie.
I bet we'll see a Feynman movie at some point. He was a very eccentric and vibrant character. Like, I don't know if you guys ever read his memoir / autobiography. biography, kind of.
Yeah.
About the Surely You Must Be Joking, Mr. Feynman. I know I read
Yeah.
that a while ago, and I really enjoyed that
Um,
book. Highly recommend it.
Cool.
Yep.
So let's move now to future movies that are coming out in the future, and I guess one of them is set in the past, in the very, very far past. The Star Wars
A
trailer
long, long
came out.
time ago.
Yeah, the Star Wars trailer came out in the past week. Have you guys watched it? I hope
Yeah.
you watched it now because we told you to watch it right before the show. It's only a minute and a half. What do you guys think of it?
It was a movie trailer, all right. I mean, there was so much uproar over the movie, and
There really was.
I saw it, and I was like, yep, that's a trailer.
I'm gonna disclaim it. First off, that I wouldn't call myself a Star Wars fan. I'll watch a Star Wars movie. You know, they're movies.
Yeah.
And I saw a 10-minute. I didn't even watch the entire thing. I saw a 10-minute breakdown of this minute and a half trailer, and a whole bunch of Yeah, I know. A whole bunch of speculation and like, oh, in this screenshot you can see this thing, and this means this, and it's like, okay.
Well, I mean, have you ever seen critical analysis of poetry? Especially like, I remember in high school even, like, we did a poetry unit, and you could write hundreds upon hundreds of words about like a 20-word poem or something like that. It's just, yeah. It's surprising how much content you can generate from comparatively very little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what when I watched it, I saw that it was a thing at work, and so I wasn't able to actually watch it and listen to it at the time. But so I just this morning watched the full trailer with sound and everything, and I was surprised after hearing that. For instance, there was a podcast that I don't actually listen to, but I heard that they did a whole hour podcast about the teaser, like just dissecting it. And I was listening to a podcast this morning that spent over an hour talking about Star Wars universe, not just the trailer. And I watched and I was like, this is what they were talking about? This is like, it was like 30 seconds of actual footage. There was so much black space, or there was so much like, there was a bunch of stuff at the end that wasn't part of the trailer. There was like 10 seconds at the beginning where there was just black. Like, it was literally 30 seconds of content at most. And yeah, it tells you nothing about the movie, which I guess is the point of a teaser.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing, is that this video I saw, this breakdown of it, apparently the trailer did tell you a lot about the movie. Apparently. Like, okay, I'll give you an example. Say, like, the lightsaber, right?
Yeah.
Which is the natural evolution, because in the original trilogy, there was just one-bladed lightsabers. When the prequels came out, they went to two blades, and now we have the natural evolution to three.
The breakdown of this lightsaber was that they read into it as, okay, well, it looks like a pretty hacked together lightsaber. You know, it's like flickering, and the sound of it was all crackly and whatever. So usually it's like a boom, boom. This one's like, so it's like, okay, it's some like guy who just hacked together a lightsaber. So it's some like, because I guess the whole thing's like the Sith is rising back up because they were gone, and now this guy's gonna rise again. So they like read into it like that, and that it was like a good guy that's gonna turn bad and a bad that's gonna turn good, and I don't know. There's a whole bunch of like reading into these little like cues.
Yeah. And now we are criticizing the criticisms.
In essence, yes.
I honestly, the whole lightsaber thing, there's been so much said about the shape of it and how it's terrible. Stephen Colbert talked about it, and Stephen Colbert is a well-known Star Wars fanatic. Like, he knows the universe very well. And he was like, I like his breakdown saying that it's all one blade underneath the metal handle that you can't see. And so basically the metal that is there, I guess it's metal, I don't know what material it is there so that the person doesn't hit their hands against the blade, but inside the thing, it's all one blade. So if you smash through the metal, it's literally just there to protect the hand, so the hand doesn't melt, but it's not gonna get damaged. Like they're not separate things, or you can just cut right through and cut your hand off.
I gotta watch some Colbert and Daily Show from this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is that if you like hold the lightsaber like this and like turn it around, it's gonna like slice your own hand off. Though I thought that was the whole thing.
But you get trained on that. On not to do that.
I mean, that seems. I mean, if you look at when I was a kid, I had a book called Arms and Armor. I don't know if you guys did, because apparently it was very popular. Anyway, they go into like swords and why they have that cross shape there, and it's so that when you're engaged in a sword fight, a sword can't slide down yours and then cut off your arm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, it makes perfect sense through that lens.
Yeah. Yeah, they were saying that if it's 3 separate blades, you would get down to the bottom and you just cut through the part underneath the lightsaber part. But yeah, Stephen was saying that it's all joined underneath the metal. You just can't see it. So you'd hit it, you'd like maybe melt that metal away, but it wouldn't cut your hand off.
But the whole thing is that usually the hilt doesn't also cut you. Like your hilt's not made out of blades; it's made out of other.
You still
metal.
don't want your hand to hit. No, wait. What's the hilt?
That cross-shaped part.
The cross guard is, I think, different than a hilt.
Is it? Okay, well, cross guard then. Usually the cross guard is not other blades.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you're...
Fair, but your hand should be on the grip, not anything else. If you've taken your hands off the grip, you got a whole host of other problems.
Presumably you're able to turn that off separately.
You know what? I have a friend who has gotten into dueling with medieval weapons. And we really should have gotten her for this part of the show.
What were we thinking?
Tiffany, if you watch these, and I don't think you do, but if you watch them, please contact us.
Yeah, we need some follow-up on that. The other movie, because I'm going to move right past Star Wars because we could talk about it for way too long, considering none of us are really that big fans of Star Wars.
I loved Star Wars as a kid. The Empire Strikes Back is an amazing movie.
That's true. I
also,
watched it probably 2 years ago.
Also,
but,
that video that the government of Norway released via torrent, which is just they strapped a camera onto the front of a train and let it go for like 23 hours or something like that in full HD. That actually goes through the setting of Hoth, which is
interesting.
Yeah, like you sit and watch it for about 10 minutes, and within the first little while of the movie, it goes through Hoth, which is awesome.
That is cool.
Yeah, I totally have the torrent. Highly recommend you get it.
I've not heard about that film video.
Oh, it's really funny.
But
and if you put it on while you're talking to someone, it's surprisingly interesting to watch.
Interesting.
Norway is
watching it right now?
A beautiful place. No, I'm not, but could be.
So the other trailer that I want to talk about is the Jurassic World trailer, which came out 2 weeks ago now. Have you guys seen that one?
I have not, but I've heard scientific criticism, but I've not seen the trailer.
Yeah, there was a lot of scientific. I'm going to say backlash, but that's not the right word because it's just a movie. Talking about how these are dinosaur hybrids and they're not really going to be. They're not real dinosaurs, first of all, and it's a little bit weird scientifically to be depending on that.
Maybe that's addressed within the.
Yeah,
movie.
Exactly. But one of the things they were saying is the reason that the studio decided to use hybrid dinosaurs was so that they could license toys, because lawyers had said after the previous movies you're no longer allowed to license toys of dinosaurs that are just regular dinosaurs, like that already exist in history, and so they had to make up new dinosaurs so that they could sell toys for them.
Like Pokemon? Like
similar, yeah.
I'm not optimistic for Jurassic World because I actually read Jurassic Park. I read The Lost World, and they were just phenomenal. Crichton was just amazing in those books. And so you watch Jurassic Park, you watch The Lost World, and they aren't nearly as good as the books. And I've never seen a movie based on Michael Crichton that was as good as the book, but that's just the nature of movies versus books, I
Yeah.
find.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jurassic Park 3 came out, which was not based on a Michael Crichton book, and it was comparative crap.
Yeah.
And so, like, given that you've just told me, like, actually, they've made dinosaur hybrids so they can sell more toys, it's like, well, my expectations have slid lower. I'm not sure how that was possible, but it's happened.
Yeah. So is there a Jurassic World book? Or
No.
are they completely
It's-
gone from...
It's Jurassic Park and the Lost World,
Okay,
and
there's
that
the
is the
two.
suite. And I highly recommend you go read them, because they are very good.
Interesting.
Science fiction. And Crichton also does, apparently he does a lot of research whenever he writes science fiction, so that it actually, like, passes the sniff test,
Right. Yeah.
the scientific sniff test.
Still counts. I'm going to do
Sure.
some live follow-up. I think we're pretty much ready to end this week. But I also want to recommend a book called The Martian by Andy Weir. It is a book about a guy who gets stranded on Mars. And again, we were talking about terraforming earlier.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting how he tries to survive on Mars. There's a lot of science and biology and physics and stuff that goes into it. It's a very good movie, or a very good book as well. They're making it into a movie apparently in the next year or two.
Hmm.
This guy is a guy that wrote this book. No publisher was going to take it. Went for the idea, and so he basically wrote it on his own. He sent out chapters to people via whatever method he was using, whether it was Word documents or whatever. But he was basically like, take this, read it. If you want, like, donate some money or whatever. Maybe he had a campaign set up. And then he got to a certain point, like finished the book, and it was getting critical acclaim from people that were reading it. And then Amazon was like, "Oh, well, great, let's do this now," or whatever publisher it was. Yeah, so it started off as this thing that nobody wanted anything to do with, and now once it was done, everyone was just like, "Wow, this is so good," and it really is a very good book. We'll put links to all of these things.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Back to Jurassic Park, though. Jurassic World.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of criticism because the dinosaurs didn't have feathers. I actually, like, this was a problem for a great many scholars.
Yeah.
Yep.
But they have the out of they're not actually dinosaurs. So
That's true. Like, that could potentially be addressed because they're not real dinosaurs.
Yeah. I mean, do you have to... Is Jurassic Park World canon... Does it involve real science, or are we talking about a completely fictitious universe? Like, just because we know more about dinosaurs than we did when the first movies came out, do we have to advance the science? Do you have to? I mean, obviously you can, but...
It involves, like... I would say that the principles of everything... and again, I haven't read it in a very long time, and I would like to reread it now that I'm talking about it, but it involved a lot of stuff to do with genetics, and it was an emerging field at the time that it was written.
mm-hmm.
So, I mean, some of the things they suggest might be a matter of engineering or technically challenging, but I don't see why it would be a problem. Like, I mean, everything seemed reasonable, and I was much younger and didn't have a bachelor's when I read it, but, you know,
Right.
it didn't seem terribly unreasonable. Like, the whole DNA extraction from mosquitoes embedded in amber, I don't know if DNA would survive that long, but...
Right. Well, they've done some stuff. I don't know how...
I think
they extracted woolly mammoth DNA from...
Yeah, so I mean maybe it's a difference in timescales, and that would become problematic. But like it's fine in theory, maybe. But the other big thing was they made it so that they couldn't generate a certain amino acid, so they had to be fed a source of that amino acid. Otherwise, they would just straight up die because they manufactured an essential amino acid because they switched off the gene that was responsible for it. I imagine that would actually be like a whole host of genes or something like that.
Yeah.
But you could just easily explain it away. Well, they switched off all the genes responsible for it. I don't remember all of it, but I think it was guanine, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's a good way to do it. That's a good way to make sure your dinosaurs don't go crazy. Like don't.
Well, that's the idea. If they ever got out into the wild, they would just die off because they wouldn't be able to get guanine.
Unless they ate each other.
Oh!
I don't think that would work.
Spoilers, guys! Spoilers.
I don't think that would work very long.
Anyway,
Are we done for the week?
I think so.
Sure.
Anything
Pretty
else
happy.
pressing?
I have to use the washroom, so we could wrap this up quickly.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll say for now, if you guys want to find the show, you can talk to us directly on Twitter at FutureChats. You'll be able to find this episode by heading to futurechat.me. And you can find us on Facebook as usual, but don't bother because Facebook's a waste of time.
You really want to go to Google Plus to find us, right?
Yeah, searching Google Plus for Future Chat, searching YouTube for Future Chat will work as well. You can find the videos. You can find our more professionally produced podcast at futurechat.me now. But
.me,
this format?
comma now.
Yes. futurechat.me now. Yeah. If you're enjoying the format, let us know. If you hate the format, also let us know. Probably more pressingly, let us know if you hate it. But
Or
yeah, we're going to keep this as long as we can.
If you're like the entirety of our viewers thus far, just remain silent about it. Don't tell us anything.
Follow us on Twitter and say nothing ever. Apparently that's actually a thing. There's an actual registered threshold of people or percentage of people that will respond to podcasts or to certain types of media, and it's like 0.1% of people. So we hit 1,000, we'll get someone who responds on a regular basis. If you are that person, please get out here. We want to hear from you. All right, we'll wrap it up for the week, and we'll see you guys next Saturday.
See you then.
See you guys.
Bye.